In the last episode, we were talking about fashion, and the house that fiat built is crumbling. The house of fiat money, that is. And you can tell that in what Max finally convinced Jamie Dimon here, Bitcoin price could 10x in the next 5 years, says Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan Chase. Of course, you and I have covered him for years here, even before Bitcoin, about the shenanigans going on at, if you can call it that, shenanigans, we'll say it politely, at JP Morgan. But he was dissing Bitcoin in 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, and now in 2021. As you predicted, he capitulated, and he's saying, hey, Bitcoin's going to 10x in the next 5 years.
Yep. Jamie Dimon was critical of Bitcoin starting when it was at $200 a coin. It's now around $45,000 a coin. It's heading, as he points out, 10x from here. So he's looking for up to 450 to 500,000 a coin. And I've been telling you for years, I had this recurring dream about Jamie Dimon. He would be coming toward me at a deserted mansion in the Hamptons. And for years, he just got closer and closer. And then finally this week, he was in view. He was there on the floor weeping and sobbing and begging forgiveness. And like a good Bitcoiner, I forgive Jamie. And now he's one of us. He's now a Bitcoiner.
I said the house that fiat money built is crumbling, and we see that all over the place. We've covered that in the United Kingdom, the gasoline, the petrol prices. All prices are rising across the UK, across Europe, across America, and we're starting to see shortages. A lot of it, the shortages of goods and services are caused by the shortage of workers who don't want to work anymore, but also who haven't been able to be trained because of everything being locked down for nearly 2 years now. We're heading to the second year anyway. One thing I could say about why in this sort of situation we might see Jamie Dimon going towards Bitcoin is that he sees the house of fiat money crumbling, right? And you could see that the Fed speak, how you have Fed speak that's obfuscating all their money printing and the covering up of the crimes. Well, it's starting to meet pleb speak. So here's one thing that why Jamie Dimon might want some unconfiscatable wealth is the mood, the mindset. We're always talking about the mindset, the inflationary mindset. Well, part of that is this sort of headline: Berlin votes to target corporate landlords, socialize 250,000 apartments. This was a non-binding vote, but it shows you the mood of the people. About 60% of Berlin voted to basically seize 250,000 apartments from big corporate landlords, those who owned more than 3,000 apartments. They voted non-binding, but that they wanted to seize these properties and socialize them, give them to the people.
Right. As you mentioned, Bitcoin is unconfiscatable. Imagine if Marie Antoinette had Bitcoin. She may have not lost her head. And that's what Jamie Dimon's thinking about right now. But the people in Berlin are facing this huge confiscation of property. Property can be confiscated. Gold can be confiscated. Silver can be confiscated. All the money at your bank can be confiscated. All of these things have been, are, and will be confiscated. There's only one asset guaranteed to increase purchasing power over time that's unconfiscatable, and that's Bitcoin. And it's great for people who just want to get some wealth for the first time in their lives, like the folks in El Salvador who are putting away 10, 20 bucks at a time. This is the first time they've had unconfiscatable hard money. Or you're Jamie Dimon and you're trying to, hightail it out of Dodge before the pitchforks and guillotines show up. Either one, you're both welcome to join the Bitcoin revolution.
Right. So, where we saw an exodus of Bitcoin and Bitcoin miners was from China. And now part of it was having to do with them shutting down miners because they said about electricity and electricity costs. Well, here's a headline which does not bode well for the money printers in the West, because part of what we've been doing, and we've been living off of debt, derivatives, piled on top of that debt, piled on top of our fiat currency rails, and more Fed speak, more and more Fed printing. Now the Treasury is printing, the government is printing. everybody's printing. So everybody's chasing fewer, the same number of goods, but the goods are now shrinking in supply too because of energy prices. Suppliers in China for Apple, Tesla, Intel, Nvidia, Qualcomm, NXP, Infineon, ASE forced to halt production amid energy crackdown. The everything shortage keeps promising to keep getting worse. Amid China's many crackdowns is a crackdown on energy consumption, motivated by a slew of reasons, including, most pressingly, spiking prices for coal and natural gas, particularly liquefied natural gas. China is the second largest importer of LNG behind Japan, as Europe and Asia compete for the supply. The supply of LNG for November delivery to Japan and Korea has exploded to $27.45 per million British thermal units on the NYMEX, up from a $6 range a year ago. And here's a chart from the CME group. Here's a year ago, and here is now. And that's part of what's driving what's happening in Europe as well, is because right now European prices for LNG are about $15, $16, and it's probably more by the time this airs. It goes up every hourly. So all the LNG, is going to Asia instead, because they're paying over $27 for their natural gas there. So, Europe had decided to go like on the open market, free market, free competition. And obviously it's a lot more there. And remember, in the United States, with all the fracking excess natural gas, we were down to like $1 something. So that's showing you how much more they're paying in Asia.
Right, so supply lines are breaking down and costs are going up, price of energy is going up. This has something to do, let's call it inertia, right? So inertia, the law of inertia, things that rest at a stop tend to rest at a stop. Things in motion tend to be in motion, continue in motion. And when you come to a dead stop, like we had in COVID, the energy required to get it moving again is exponentially greater than the energy required before just to keep it rolling and ticking over.
Yes.
So you have the benefit for decades now of these major economies able to simply print money to keep the wheels of what was a lot of malinvestment going, even though a lot of these projects, the ghost cities in China or the white elephant projects in the United States, they were papered over with money printing. And then they hit that unmovable object called COVID in 2020. And the belief at the time would be, well, we're going to lock everything down, and then when it's safe, we're going to open things up. And there's kind of in people's minds this idea that the energy required to get it started again won't be particularly greater than the energy was required to keep it going before the stoppage. But that's completely false. The energy required to get these systems going again is exponentially greater than the energy required to keep them going. In many cases, these supply lines are going to have to be rebuilt from scratch. Absolutely. I mean, look at the airline industry to get, or to look at the trucking industry as it relates to energy. It takes 6 months to train somebody to drive one of those trucks. So if you lose all those drivers for various reasons due to money printing, you can't simply turn the switch and get drivers back on. You have a 6-month window that you absolutely have to respect. That's going to cause problems. Just like you can't make 12-year-old scotch in anything less than 12 years. That's one of the facts. That's a truism in the 12-year scotch business. If you have drivers that require 6 months of training before they can drive a gas rig, you can't. That's what it requires. So if you pull the plug on it, now to start it up again, they're finding that they don't have the energy. It's not available at any price. And what's happening to the price? It's going up. And by the way, all the money they printed is still sloshing around, and that's causing inflation. And so systemically speaking, this is the Jim Rickards moment that he spoke about, that snowflake on the mountainside that starts the avalanche. He's a systems analyst, Jim Rickards. He's written many books, look him up. And I think this is the avalanche.
This could be the avalanche, and it is the house of that fiat money built is crumbling. And it's interesting that if you look at it, the globalized economy built on top of geopolitics. Now, geopolitics is based around mutually assured destruction. That's how it keeps it a consensus model on the politics stage. It is like not of mutual cooperation, but mutual destruction. We will kill each other. On top of this, that geopolitics, you built this economy that we didn't even realize was mutually assured destruction happening, that one piece goes and the whole thing falls apart. I mean, it's kind of tied to what Warren Buffett said about the weapons of mass financial destruction that are, is the spaghetti tying all of this globalized system together. And now we're seeing that because of COVID and the supply chain disruptions and the disruptions to the education system, not only for children and young people, but also for universities and for the sort of schools and training programs that teach the plumbers, the people who maintain the electric grid, or the people who maintain the supply grid, the logistics grid. If those new people aren't coming online because they haven't been trained for the last year and a half, we're nearing 2 years now. What are you going to do? Some people say, let's go to India, right? Well, India's massive fleet of coal plants are running dangerously low on stockpiles, which may force the nation to buy expensive shipments of the fuel or else risk blackouts. They may have to buy expensive shipments of the fuel. As we just covered, China is also out there trying to find expensive shipments, and Japan. So everybody's racing to get some of these, there's panic buying on the nation state level. And the next panic buying will be of Bitcoin.
Right. Well, the incentives in the traditional economy are not well organized because economics is a social science and not a hard science like physics or chemistry. But Bitcoin is the hard science of money. It is the first time you have algorithmic, mathematically pristine and perfect money. That's the first time in history. And that's why all of this cash sloshing around the system, and there's hundreds of trillions of dollars, it's going to all find its way into Bitcoin. And that's how you get to well over $10 million of Bitcoin.